Hello and Happy New Year. Welcome to our first edition in 2019 of Georgia Power at the Maynard Report. I'm Maynard Eaton. Joining me now, of course, is our producer, the artist, the art entrepreneur, the curator, Mr. Okeeba Jubalo.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okeeba, on February 2nd, you're doing something called Atlanta, Our Home, Our Artists, Our Legacy.
Yes,
sounds ambitious. What the hell is it?
Well, it's a show that I'm curating with the National Black Arts Festival and everything. So it's a show, we're looking at the Super Bowl being here. So it's a gateway into a bigger play and everything. So we're doing it over at September Grace Gallery. And that's going to be on February 2nd, 7 p.m. And we have some dynamic artists.
Are we looking at or listening to a revival, a renewal, or a new spirit with the NBAF?
Oh yeah, definitely. This is definitely that. You know, because it's been a while where because of leadership changes and budget restraints and some things here and there. You know what I'm saying? It's been a gap and everything. But with Vicky Morrow, who's the CEO, we're working together to really move it forward and do some good things.
Some have asked, this is the National Black Arts Festival, why just Atlanta artists?
Because I feel like as the curator and creative director, one of the things that I was looking at is that we have to focus on the talent that's here. Because Atlanta dictates everything everywhere. You know, unfortunately, when you're in Atlanta, we can lose sight of the geniuses that we have here and everything. So it's one of those things where if we don't focus on fixing home, then it's not going to work and everything. So you can bring somebody from New York, California, anywhere else, but you have geniuses right here who deserve that platform. So that's what this is about.
And why hasn't that been? And how you're rocking the boat a little bit here, as you often do.
Yeah. I think it's just been maybe like a disconnect from the community. And it's like one of those things where when you have a girlfriend who looks good, you get used to seeing her. You look across the street at the other one without realizing what you have here. So I think it's just not really been in touch with how brilliant these artists are here in Atlanta. And by me being here in Atlanta and being an artist here in Atlanta, I'm always pro-Atlanta first.
Have artists been ignored here, overlooked, underpaid, or just dismissed?
I'd say all of the above.
Really?
You know, it depends on when we use the word artist, so like if we're talking about musicians, if we're talking about fine artists, theaters, you know what I'm saying? But when you look at the fine arts, yes, you know what I'm saying? You have a handful of names out here. You have your Radcliffe Bailey, some of your Fahamo Pecus, Fabian Williams. You have a handful of people, Kara Walker, who left Atlanta. And because there's a really hard relationship between the artists and the establishments here.
But you have people like Steve Allen, whose work is in the Smithsonian.
Steve is one of the artists that's going to be in this exhibit. But when you look at the amount of traction that you can gain right here in your hometown, so Steve is a wonderful example. You know, he does great things overseas, and like you said, being in the Smithsonian, everybody doesn't just walk up in there and get on that pipeline. But it's one of those things where when you look at his track record, you know, it's doing really well outside of Atlanta, and that's a problem. For me, it's a problem.
What is the state of black art here in Atlanta, or nationally even? But what is the state of black art? Is it selling? Is it moving? Is it doing? Is it making a difference? Is it making a noise?
I think the state of it is there's a tremendous amount of work that's created here, but there's not a tremendous amount of support here. And if you're not within a certain pocket here, then you don't make it to the front of the school line and everything. So it's like the state of the art. I think one of the things that needs to happen is there needs to be a team that's in charge of moving it forward, and that doesn't happen. You know, it's regardless of where you are, if you're in D.C., New York, Chicago, what have you, there needs to be a team that's in charge of pushing black art forward. And it is one of those things where it's good and bad, saying it's a luxury item, so that complicates certain things too.
Now, as an artist, you've kind of changed the paradigm on how artists get paid, have you not? I mean, most artists lease out their work to an art dealer and then they get a percentage of it if it's sold. You did something different. You do something different with your art.
Yeah. I mean, one thing is a lot of artists look at it from this emotional place, and they create so much work. And my thing is I'm emotional, but I'm business first. So my thing is if I'm going to create the work, I have to create it to go. So I'm building it with wheels on it. I'm not building it just to do it.
With wheels on it? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
with
wheels on it. My goal is every time I paint something, I need to sell it.
It goes out the door.
It goes out the door and goes to a collector. So it's just like when you look at a luxury item has, there's not like an overflow like you go to Walmart. You know, if you go to Walmart, you see T-shirts everywhere. You know, and a lot of artists make the mistake of taking that same approach, saying, hey, you go in my studio, you're going to see hundreds of pieces. But if you're a collector and you're coming into that space, you don't want to see hundreds of pieces. You want to see, you know what I'm saying, like a dozen, maybe.
You don't want everybody to have what you have.
Right. So it's a different approach to it. And my thing is like, okay, I'm going to take a different approach to that while at the same time looking at the relationships between the collectors and myself, and also like the galleries that I work with, like September Gray. She's a wonderful, wonderful gallery to work with here in the city. You know, so looking at her, that's where we're doing the show at. But I just think
on February 2nd, right?
February 2nd at 7 p.m.
Talking about art and the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Isn't there been a lot of art that's sprung up around the city on walls and things like that? Is that something new, or is it just for Super Bowl oriented, or is it really Atlanta broadcasting the talent that's here?
I think it's a combination where Atlanta has a habit of once somebody does something, they do it over and over again. So you have a lot of murals that's going up, and even that process of selecting who's going to handle the mural. You know, you have a lot of artists that aren't from Atlanta that's actually doing that. So you have this money that could have been filtered into our local economy being pushed outside. And for me, that's a problem. You know, and not to say that I don't believe in supporting artists on a national level, but I firmly believe if my grass is out of order, I need to deal with my grass first. And then I can go across the street and talk to my neighbor about his or her grass.
Why? Because this is the headquarters for the National Black Arts Festival.
Yeah, it's the headquarters for NBAF. It's the headquarters for the Civil Rights Movement. Yeah. It's the headquarters for the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? Atlanta is also the headquarters of all of everything urban culture right now. Yeah. And it's been like that for like the last 20 plus years. So my thing is, if we're going to really focus on fixing Atlanta, we have to fix home first. We can't say, hey, let's import so-and-so from Baltimore to come do this mural right here. Well, I have a list of 100 artists who could have done that and needed the money, and they got that money, then they would have been able to buy more art supplies right here locally. They would have been able to hire assistants right here locally. So it feeds the economy locally. So not only does my business model support building a better system for the artists, but it supports building a better system for Atlanta, like an economic system.
Finally, you're doing something for the Super Bowl, are you not? Aren't you creating a piece?
Well, my piece is going to be putting this exhibition together.
I see.
You know, so I'll have some work in the exhibition, but I'm primarily focused on the business of making this thing work how it's supposed to work. So I have some work there, though.
Okeeba, thank you so much. Again, you're listening to Okeeba Jubalo, the artist, the entrepreneur, the curator of a new show on February 2nd called Atlanta, Our Home, Our Artists, Our Legacy. Please join us. Thank you for watching the Georgia Power Show on the Maynard Report. I'm Maynard Eaton.